Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy Devvon Terrell in raw form, and welcome to another Help Me Devvon raw tutorial. And today, in this Help Me Devvon tutorial, I'll be showing you guys how to get a perfect reverb time every time. Now, this video is an updated version to a video that I did some time ago with a slight miscalculation, but I promise if you guys stick with me, I'm going to show you a technique that was passed down to me from some legendary engineers as far as their way of how they get a baseline of establishing reverb times. Now, when I say this, I'm referring to the pre-delays and the reverb times or the decays, where it allows you to figure out how to make something breathe within the music, where it starts and ends in time with your music. And this is very important because this will avoid you having buildups in your music when you're using reverb, so you don't overly do this. And this is a very powerful technique that is based on BPMs, so this will go according to every single song. It will be different for every single song, but I'm going to show you this technique that I've always used to give me a starting point and an idea of how I want it to sound and feel and getting my reverbs in time. Let's get right to it. Okay. So first and foremost, I'm going to play you the song. This is one of my own songs. This is called You Trippin'. It's out on all streaming platforms. I'm going to play you the song. I want you to take a listen to it. Let's just listen to the vocals in context with the music. Listen close.
I can see you on the way. Yeah. Taking pictures and you feeling great. Yeah. You acting different when you in LA. Yeah. You in a mood or you feeling great.
Okay, so you heard the song for what it is. That reverb is what I felt was suited best for the song and things of that nature. Now I'm going to dive a little bit deeper and show you what I'm really talking about as far as how I use a special technique to get a reverb that was arguably perfectly in time. So check this out. So this go around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo the vocal. And what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to how this vocal ends. So the way this vocal ends after the phrase is done, I want you to pay attention to that. And then I want you to pay attention to how it comes in on the next one. What you'll realize is when the vocal ends, the reverb dissipates right at the beginning of the next phrase. And that's what's so powerful about having it in time, because now that it's going on in time with the actual tempo of the song, it ends and starts at great places where it kind of doesn't allow it to build up on top of the next phrase. Stay with me, I gotcha. Okay. So I'm going to solo this and I want you to listen to this very closely. So listen to how this ends and how the next phrase starts.
You in a mood or you feeling great? Yeah. Girl, I see you travel different. Yeah.
So you saw when that vocal ended, you felt it come down and then the next one came in without any disturbance from the vocal that previously just left it. And that's because I have it in time with the actual music. How did we get to this place? How do we do this? And how can we always use this for our songs to give us an idea of timing as far as reverbs are concerned? Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you guys to comment, like, subscribe. Also, make sure you visit helpmedevvon.info at any time during this video so that you can get some of our goodies, vocal chains, presets, just like this one. I actually use one of our vocal chains for this very song right here that you can grab over at helpmedevvon.info. Take a look. Let's get back to the song. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll on over here to my reverb. And I'm going to go over here. And the reverb that I use for this song is the Valhalla Vintage Verb, one of my favorite reverbs. This is a very common reverb that a lot of us use. And what we're going to do is we're going to pay mainly attention to the decay and the pre-delay. And what I have to do is I have to explain this to you before we go any further. I want you to understand what the pre-delay is and what the decay is on your reverbs. These are probably the two of the more common functions or knobs or parameters that you see on your plugins as far as the reverbs are concerned. Okay, your decay. When it comes to your decay, the other word that you'll see for it is reverb time. When it comes to your decay, it's basically saying how long do you want this reverb sound to last. So this is basically when you're looking at the tail or how long or how huge that reverb is going to sound. This is a good place to say to yourself, I'm going to manipulate this parameter, and that's the decay knob. Now, when it comes to the pre-delay knob, what you're saying to the reverb is, hey, how long before the vocal or the sound hits do you want me to engage? Pre-delay. So basically, what happens with the pre-delay is, let's say for instance, it's the vocal. Your vocal will start to sound, it will sing through, and then the actual reverb sound is asking you, hey, when do I start to act? When do I start to react to this vocal? That is your pre-delay. So now that you know what the pre-delay is and the reverb time is, I'm going to explain this to you in detail and how to get them in time. Now, when it comes to your pre-delay, I'm going to show you what it actually is doing so that you can get a good idea and sense of what it is. So check this out. Let's exaggerate things. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on over back to our vocal, which is right here. It's soloed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to exaggerate this a lot. So I'm going to crank this reverb up to about 1. And I want you to hear this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the pre-delay knob over loud to a slower and slower time. And then I want you to hear what it does. And then I'll move it to a faster and faster time. And I want you to hear what it does. And then we'll figure out exactly what you have come to. Okay. So let's start it at the 0 mark and let's move all the way up playing it.
You in a mood or you feeling great? Yeah. Girl, I see you travel different. Yeah. When you not home, oh, I can see the difference. Yeah. You just wanna have a good time, don't you? Every time you on that plane, you be feeling yourself.
Okay, so what you realize is when the pre-delay was set to its fastest setting, it reacts to the vocal immediately. The reverb is engaged as soon as that vocal is sounded. When it was moved to a slower pre-delay time, you notice that it reacted slower, where basically the dry vocal cut through and then that wet sound came after. This is very important when it comes to your reverb sounding more realistic and pretty much creating the space, okay? Now, I feel like when it comes to your decays, this is pretty self-explanatory. This will just make the delay sound longer and bigger, so I'll just leave that alone for now. I think you have a really good idea of what that does when you crank this actual sound. Now, on to the actual technique. How did I set the reverb up to be in time with my song? I'm going to show you. First and foremost, let me just set this back to my 50 that I had it before I forget. And this was at about 11.3. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. And this involves a little bit of math. Don't be scared and don't run away and stay with me. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our calculator. And what we're going to do is we're going to type in the number 60,000. Now, let me tell you why we're typing in the number 60,000. There are 60,000 beats in a minute. Basically, when it comes to your BPM, beats per minute, you use this and that number to give you a certain number on the other side. Now, check this out. There are 60,000 beats in a minute. What we're going to do is we're going to say 60,000 divided by the BPM, and this is going to give us our song in milliseconds. Stay with me, okay? All right, so the BPM of our particular song is, and let me double check, let me just make sure. The BPM of our song is 152, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 60,000 divided by 152, and it equals 394 milliseconds. So it equals 394 milliseconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to find my reverb time or my decay time. So it's telling me that 394 milliseconds is in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this by 2 until I get to about a 1 point something or 2 point something or somewhere in that range of the thousands when it comes to its actual millisecond. So I'm trying to get to a more of a thousandth of a millisecond so that I can get a 1.5 or something like that. I want at least a second of reverb so that it feels more realistic and feels bigger. Got me? So I'm trying to get to a second with this calculation. Okay, so I'm going to say times 2. That gives me 789. I'm not at my 1 second yet. I'm still at 789 milliseconds. I'm trying to get to a second. Times this by 2. And I'm greeted with the number 1,578 milliseconds, which will translate to about 1.5 seconds when it comes to that being converted. Okay, you stayed with me? It's math. I know you hate it so much, but I also have another way for you to figure this out. If your head hurts right now and you really don't want to do math every time you go through this, I have a special technique for you as well to get this immediately. Check this out. So, say for instance, you're trying to figure out your reverb time to get it perfect, right? What you could do is you can go on over to your delay, right? When you go to your delay, what you'll notice is chances are you have a feature where it says BPM, right? Your delays go to your BPMs if you have it locked that way. There should be a setting on your delay that allows you to see how much it is in milliseconds. So basically, this delay is telling me, hey, your half note delay is actually 789 milliseconds. So I say, okay, great. That's great. Now, what is a whole bar, right? So what is a whole bar in milliseconds? I click milliseconds and it's telling me it's 1,579. So if you're not good at math and you don't want to deal with this, use your delay with the tempo synced and you can figure out what a whole bar's worth of in milliseconds your song actually is. So for us, a whole bar, or basically trying to get to that 1 second kind of place, is 1,579 milliseconds, which converts to 1.5 seconds. I figured this out all by going to the delay. Keep that in mind. The delay helped me. Or you can do the 60,000 math technique if you like. Okay, so now that I got my reverb time as far as that one is concerned, I have it typed in, and I wind up falling around this 1.59 range. That's where I kind of felt. Like I said, I use it as a starting place with the 1.57, but I wound up finding myself 1.9 felt right. So like I said, use this technique, with a grain of salt. Find what works for you. Try it. If you say, wow, that was perfect and it sounds great, then run with it and just find a sweet spot that works for you. If you're looking for high ones, keep doubling it until you get what you're looking for out of the sound. Now let's move on to the pre-delay, and this is basically going to be the same thing that we did already. Okay, so now we're trying to figure out the pre-delay of this entire thing as far as reverb time for the pre-delay. So what I'm going to do is, we know that 1,578 is the reverb time that we kind of found. So let's keep dividing this by 2 to keep getting it in half. So it keeps it in the tempo of the song, but it will keep breaking it in half until we fall into more of like under 90. And that's kind of my rule of thumb. I try to get to like under 100 milliseconds with my pre-delay, and I find myself liking that a little bit more. So I'm going to keep dividing this by 2, divided by 2, getting there, divided by 2. All right, I'm at 98. Now, I'm not going to go for the 98. I think I want a little bit less of a pre-delay because I kind of want it to be engaged a little bit faster as far as the sound of it. So I'm going to try and get it a little lower. Now, granted, you can play it at 98 milliseconds, see how it sounds. But I know I wanted my reverb as far as the pre-delay is concerned to be a little tighter. All right, so I'm going to divide it by 2 one more time. And I fall into 49 seconds. So that's where I fall into my 50 milliseconds. Sorry, 49 milliseconds. And thus I find myself into 50 milliseconds on this right here. So basically, this is just a really quick way, or, a technique that you can use to actually find a quote unquote or arguable perfect reverb time. Now, am I saying that this is the end all be all perfect way to do this? Absolutely not. Use your ears, use your own discretion. But is this something that kind of makes sense to actually try if you're trying to find that timing as far as when it breathes off and breathes in, and then you can kind of tweak from there? Absolutely. I think it's something that you can use that's really, really sick as far as trying to get closer to a starting point in your mixes. So I hope that was extremely helpful. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe to keep this channel going. Also, make sure you visit helpmedevvon.info to get some of our vocal chains, presets, and all kinds of things to support the channel. Remember, I did use one of our vocal chains presets for this particular song. Please head on over there, helpmedevvon.info. You can also follow us at helpmedevvon on the Instagram, where we give a bunch of tips and all kinds kinds of things all the time. And make sure you also follow our Discord community with a bunch of aspiring engineers like yourselves that are just sharing tips and giving game. And that's all in the description below. So I hope that was helpful. If you guys have any questions, please ask me below in the comments. And until next time.